Welcome to Eye on Africa with me, Jean-Emile Jameen, taking a look at all your latest news from across the continent. Here are your leading stories. Nigeria's former president, Muhammadu Buhari, is buried with military honors and heavy security as mourners pack his hometown. Despite a troubled legacy, many in the north continue to remember the late leader with deep respect. Then Doctors Without Borders says 3 of its staff in Ethiopia's Tigray region were intentionally killed by Ethiopian military forces in June 2021 and not caught in the crossfire. The charity accuses the government of failing to investigate despite promises. And in Côte d'Ivoire, students are building farming robots to shake up the country's aging agricultural sector. The high-stakes competition is part of a bold push to bring tech to the fields and reimagine the future of farming. Welcome to the show. Former Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari was laid to rest this Tuesday in his hometown of Daura under tight security and heavy public attention. Buhari, who died at 82 in a London clinic, was mourned by thousands, including dignitaries and foreign heads of state. Once a military ruler turned elected president, Buhari leaves behind a mixed legacy, though, of missed promises, persistent insecurity and economic hardships. Even some family members were denied entry to the burial, highlighting the extraordinary security surrounding his final farewell. Our regional correspondent, Chinwe Usundu, has been covering the funeral.
Former head of state Muhammadu Buhari has been laid to rest in his residence in Daura, Katsina State. The burial happened amidst tight security and in the presence of dignitaries from Nigeria and neighboring countries like Niger and Chad, who came to pay their final respect. The 82-year-old politician served as a military head of state between January 1984 and August 1985. Thereafter, contested the presidency 3 times unsuccessfully, before winning in 2015, defeating the then incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan. In 1983, he was a young no-nonsense ruler with zero tolerance to cutting corners and corrupt practices. Reason why the masses laid hopes in 2015 for him to set Nigeria's record straight. Unfortunately, Buhari's first term was rocky. Nigeria's economy entered a recession for the first time in a decade, and security crisis piled up. Tributes from around the world and in Nigeria are flying in. Nigeria's President Tinubu hailed Buhari's legacy as a patriot, a soldier, a statesman with a deep commitment to unity and progress of his country. By others, he was a champion of order who tried his best amidst a dysfunctional political system. Other opinion is that of dissatisfaction, especially in the southern part of Nigeria. However, a man loved by his people and well respected. Farewell to the statesman.
Moving on, and Doctors Without Borders says 3 of its staff were intentionally executed by Ethiopian soldiers in Tigray in 2021, not caught in crossfire, but shot at close range while clearly identifiable as aid workers. The victims included Spanish coordinator María Hernández Matas, Ethiopian health worker Yohannes Haleform Reda, and driver Tedros Gebremariam. MSF halted operations in Tigray after the killings and now accuse Ethiopia's government of breaking its promise to investigate. Eyewitnesses reportedly hearing a commander give the order to shoot over the radio. Olivia Bizo, our correspondent in the region, has this update.
The 3 aid workers were driving a clearly marked MSF vehicle near the town of Abiy Adi in central Tigray. MSF says they were on a mission to help people wounded in fighting when they were stopped, shot at close range and killed. The charity's internal review says this wasn't crossfire, but it was a deliberate attack. Satellite images and witness accounts place Ethiopian army soldiers on the same road at the same time. Now, MSF says it's held more than 20 meetings with the Ethiopian government since, but still has no clear answers.
We think that the climate of impunity is fueling these attacks. So unless there is something, a consensus rebuilt around the necessity to protect humanitarian workers and health workers in terms of conflicts, we're going to see an even worsening trend. So we think there's a very important moment for us to use our incident, to use this experience, to make it public and to call for action to whomever has a responsibility responsibility to both investigate as well as protect humanitarian workers.
The killings happened during the Tigray War, a conflict that left around 600,000 people dead from fighting, hunger and lack of healthcare. It ended in 2022 with a peace deal, but MSF says aid workers often came under threat from both Ethiopian and Eritrean troops, with attacks on aid workers rising across the region in places like Sudan, South Sudan and the DRC. MSF says staying silent is no longer an option.
Now, tensions are soaring in Kenya after President William Ruto told police to shoot violent protesters in the leg. Amnesty International has slammed the remarks as unlawful and dangerous, warning they could fuel more bloodshed. At least 38 people were killed during recent protests, the deadliest day yet in a year of youth-led anti-government rallies. A new rights report accuses police of extrajudicial killings, disappearances and live fire on citizens. The government says police abuses will be investigated, but over 1,500 arrests have already been made and public anger is only growing. We can hear now from Amnesty International's Kenya Executive Director, Irungu Houghton.
The orders to shoot, to kill, the orders to shoot to maim by the President, the Interior Cabinet Secretary and also the National Defence Committee chairperson were all unlawful commands. They are unlawful because the National Police Service is an independent agency. It is governed not by the instructions of the Executive or Parliament. They are governed by their own National Service Act, Police Act, and they are governed by the Constitution and the laws of Kenya. So we are calling on the entire political class to desist from giving unlawful commands to the police. This is a very tense moment, and the dangers are very real. It could lead to, for example, self-defense units that are developed.
Now in Guinea, living near Conakry's Dar es Salaam landfill has become a walking and waking nightmare. With the rainy season underway, residents fear deadly landslides on top of the toxic air that's already claimed dozens of lives. The Prime Minister has again vowed to shut it down, but locals say it's too little, too late. Even the neighborhood imam died last month. Malik Diakite and Caitlin Kelly report.
Just a few steps from the Dar es Salaam landfill sits Mariama's modest home. She and her family have lived with the stench and the swarms of flies for years. But what truly breaks her heart is watching her husband waste away before her eyes.
At the hospital, they told us his body and chest were full of smoke. But it doesn't even smoke. This smoke is destroying our lives. When it starts, we have to lock ourselves inside the house. Now he's even paralyzed and we don't have any money. We're really scared.
Conakry's landfill stretches across 30 hectares, where urban waste from the entire capital is dumped in the open and left untreated. Decomposing for more than 40 years, gases are released that experts say are poisoning the lives of thousands of nearby residents. In June this year, residents took to the streets to protest living conditions, including many young people who made demands that the landfill be relocated.
It's impossible to stay outside even for 10 minutes. The garbage dump has even affected the groundwater. When you pump water, it's trash that comes up.
Plans are underway to build a proper waste management site about 50 kilometers outside Conakry. As the Public Waste Agency says, it is taking action.
So there's a whole plan in place. Can you see the trees? We're going to rehabilitate this landfill and turn it into an urban park. Right now, we're using a temporary site in Manea. The idea is to reduce the amount of waste being sent to the Minière landfill.
Back in 2017, a landslide here killed 9 people. As this year's rains intensify, fears of a similar disaster grow.
Let's take the news to Ghana, where the country's government has repatriated over 2,000 undocumented migrants, mostly minors, trafficked from Niger, Nigeria and Burkina Faso to beg on the streets. Immigration officials launched mass arrests in May, saying child begging is not only illegal but damaging to Ghana's international image. Interior Minister Muntaka Mubarak says the operation centered in Accra is part of a broader crackdown on trafficking and organized begging. And he insists it's being carried out humanely and with international standards.
We were able to remove over 2,241 street beggars that have been cleared off our streets and repatriated to their countries. We are mapping our strategy that will make sure that we eliminate all these challenges on all our streets, not only in Accra, but across the cities in our country.
And finally, in the Ivory Coast, the next generation of tech talent is racing to revolutionize farming. Dozens of students faced off in a high-energy robot building competition, designing machines to transform the country's aging agricultural sector. It's part of a bold national push to fuse innovation with one of the economy's oldest backbones. Laurent Berstecker with the story.
Gathered in small groups, these Ivorian students carefully design, craft and build tiny robots that will power the farms of the future. They're all competing for first prize in the Agriculture 4.0 contest, which aims to reignite young people's interest in an aging and dwindling sector.
It's agriculture that's been improved and enhanced through new technologies, such as robots, drones, artificial intelligence, or data processing. And it'll enable farmers to have greater control over their harvests.
A central pillar of Ivory Coast's economy, agriculture employs around half of the country's active population. Yet only 30% of Ivorian farms are mechanized, and the sector is struggling to attract young workers who often flock to cities in search of opportunities. At 70 years old, Faustin Zongo is finding it increasingly difficult to keep up with the physical demands of the job. He recently enlisted the services of a local startup, which uses drones to help him spray his fields with pesticides.
Normally it takes at least 2 days to cover 1 hectare. But now with the drone, we just sprayed around 5 hectares, and that took less than 2 hours.
Beyond the drones, tractors, and other machines, new technologies can also help gather and analyze data to optimize harvests, for instance, by preventing crop disease from spreading. But most of all, they could help bring young people back to the fields in a country where 75% of the population is under 35 years old.
Well, that's it for us here at the Eye on Africa show. Up next, more news here on France 24.